Alright, in this video we're going to look at the process we use for multiplying monomial times a variety of things, either monomials times monomials, or later we'll look at monomials times polynomials. So here's how we're going to approach it. If we have a monomial times a monomial, it's very straightforward. All we do is multiply the coefficients, and we use exponent rules to simplify the variable portion. So we'll start with our first example, 5x squared times 4x to the fourth. We're going to take the numerical portion, the coefficients, and multiply those together. 5 times 4 gives me 20. And then we will look at the variable portion. We've got x's in both. We've got an x squared times x to the fourth. When we multiply two exponent expressions with the same base, we leave the base the same and add the exponents. So that's going to be 20x to the sixth. Part B, same approach. We're going to multiply the coefficients. Negative 3 times 4 gives us negative 12. And we're going to multiply x to the third times x to the third. Again, we add the exponents. Leave the base the same. Add the exponents. 3 plus 3 is 6. So this ends up being negative 12x to the sixth. Part C, a little bit more involved, since now we have two variables in each of the monomials instead of only one, but still the same process holds. We'll multiply the numbers. 5 times 4 gives us 20. We'll multiply the x's. We've got x, or x to the first, times x squared. So we add those exponents. 1 plus 2 gives us 3. That's going to be 20x to the third. And we'll do the same with the y's. Y, that's y to the first, times y to the third. We add the exponents. That gives us y to the fourth. And so when we multiply those two monomials together, we end up with 20x to the third, y to the fourth. Now, when we multiply a monomial by any larger polynomial, what we're going to do is we're going to use the distributive property. And everybody should be somewhat familiar with the distributive property, heard of it, used it before. But general refresher, to use the distributive property, all we're going to do is we're going to multiply the monomial by each term of the polynomial individually. So in part A here, we're going to take 5x squared and we're going to multiply it times x, and we're going to multiply it times minus 3. So 5x squared times 1x, 5 times 1 is 5, x squared times x is x to the third. And then we keep this sign, since we were multiplying by a positive monomial, and multiply the numbers. 5 times 3 is 15, and x squared, there's no x here, so we just leave the same power of x that we have in our original monomial, and that ends up being 5x to the third minus 15x squared. Do the same thing in part B. We're going to take 4x, and we're going to multiply it by both of the terms of this binomial. So 4x times x to the third, that's 4x to the fourth. Again, we're adding the exponents, and remember that when there is no exponent written, x is just x to the first power. And then 4x to the first times a minus 2x squared, that's going to be a minus. 4 times 2 is 8. X times x squared is x to the third. Part C, we're going to multiply this negative 3x squared. We're going to distribute it through both terms in the binomial. So negative 3x squared times x squared, that's 1x squared. We multiply our numbers. Negative 3 times 1 is 3. X squared times x squared is x to the fourth. Then we do the same thing, multiplying it by a minus 4x. Now we've got a negative times a negative. That means that we're going to have a plus sign here. Then we multiply our numbers. 3 times 4 is 12. And x squared times x. We add the exponents. That gives us x to the third. Alright, part D, we're going to take this, distribute it through both terms, multiply the numbers. 4 times 3 is 12. Multiply the variables. X squared times x to the first. Add the exponents. 2 plus 1 makes that x to the third. And y to the third times y squared is going to be y to the fifth. 3 plus 2. We now have a minus sign. 4 times 2 gives us 8. X squared times x squared gives us x to the fourth. And y to the third times y to the first gives us y to the fourth. Alright, So that whole page we looked at multiplying a monomial times a binomial. We can extend the same idea of using the distributive property to when we have bigger polynomials, like trinomials, which we're going to do on this page. So now we're going to take the monomial and we're going to multiply it by not just two terms, but all three terms in the trinomial. 4x times x squared. 4 times 1 is 4. X times x squared is x to the third. 4 times minus 3 is minus 12. X times x, that's x to the first times x to the first. We add those two powers together, makes it x to the second. And then 4x times 6 gives us 24x. Now in part B, we're going to take this monomial and do the same thing. We're going to multiply it through times all three of the terms in the trinomial. We've got 2x squared y to the third times 5x squared y. 2 times 5 is 10. X squared times x squared is x to the fourth. Y to the third times y to the first is y to the fourth. Now we multiply it times 3x. 2 times 3 is 6. X squared times x is x to the third. And now since there are no y's in this 3x term, we just keep the power of y that's in the monomial, and so we're going to have y to the third. Now we'll distribute that through the last term. We've got a minus sign. 2 times 2 gives us 4. Here we have x's, but no x's in this, so we just bring the x's that are in the monomial. That's x squared. And then y to the third times y. Y to the fourth. All right. Next, we're going to distribute this negative 5x to the third through here. Negative 5 times 3 gives us negative 15. X to the third times x squared gives us x to the fifth. Negative 5 times negative 2 gives us a plus 10. This is a common student error alert. When we have a negative times a negative here, we've got to make sure it turns into a positive. X to the third times x is going to be x to the fourth. And then negative 5x to the third times minus 7. Again, two negative signs lead to a positive when we multiply them. 5 times 7 is 35, and we keep our x's. And last one, negative 4xy squared. We'll distribute through all three terms of this polynomial. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. X times x squared is x to the third. No y's in the polynomial, so we just bring our y's from our monomial. Then we've got negative 4xy squared times plus 3xy. Negative 4 times plus 3, 12. X times x, x squared. Y squared times y, y to the third. And lastly, we distribute it through the negative 5y squared. Negative 4 times negative 5 makes it plus 20. X times, well, there's no x's, so we just bring the x. And then y squared times y squared gives us y to the fourth. And that concludes our video on multiplying monomials times various types of polynomials.